Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna take over and start by saying that I very much align with the invitation of Mr. Leflander to look at the forest behind the trees. However, when it comes to the critical information infrastructure protection, it's not that simple frequently. And when we speak about that, we speak usually about the dysfunctionality at the higher level, a lot of material damages, and the panic in the society. So saying that, I would like to present the magnitude of the issue throughout a lens of a couple of examples. And I would like to start with the video.
Down the road.
Yeah. Here.
Gas pipeline in the United States, cutting off the flow of gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Today, the FBI put out a statement pointing the finger at a group of hackers. The FBI says the dark side ransomware is responsible for the compromise of the Colonial Pipeline networks. The hack shut down its entire network Friday afternoon. Today, the company said it hopes to be back online by the end of the week. The Colonial Pipeline supplies fuel from the Gulf Coast to the densely populated eastern and southern United States. DarkSide is a known organized group of hackers, mostly based in Russia. It claims it targets profitable private companies and that its goal is to make money, not create problems for society. In the U.S., most critical infrastructure is owned by private companies, and what's happened reveals the reach and the destabilizing power of ransomware attacks. Jackson Prosco has our top story tonight.
4 days after the hack, this critical supply of U.S. energy remains at a standstill, interrupting the daily flow of 2.5 million barrels of diesel, gasoline, and jet fuel, nearly half the supply of the U.S. East Coast.
It's still the first and largest major disruption of energy infrastructure in the United States that is coming from a cyber problem.
On Friday, hackers broke into Colonial Pipeline's business operations and launched a ransomware attack. The company shut down the pipeline to protect the rest of its computers. The FBI says a Russian cyber gang called DarkSide is to blame. It's not clear if the action was state-sponsored.
At this time, we assess that DarkSide is a criminal actor, but that's certainly something that our intelligence community is looking into.
Ransomware attacks are typically about money, not disruption. Hackers encrypt the victim's computer files so they can't be accessed and demand a hefty payment to unlock them.
These groups are realizing that by targeting industrial companies, they get higher payouts, and the companies are more willing to pay out because they want to return these vital operations.
The U.S. is reeling from a string of more traditional cyber attacks that have exposed vulnerabilities. A water treatment plant in Florida was hacked in what's believed to have been an attempt to poison the water supply. And the U.S. government is still assessing the damage from the massive SolarWinds data breach. Experts see what happened to Colonial as a warning.
One could, with a malicious intent, turn a routine piece of energy infrastructure into a weapon.
Even if the Colonial hack was just about money, it could cause price hikes and supply shortages if it drags on.
Yeah. Why I put this video as the first one? Despite the fact that I'm representing the Europe office of the ITU, the issue is truly global, and it's not that only the developing countries, for example, are being the target of the attacks. So each and every country, regardless of their level of development, regardless of their efforts, might become a target of the attack. And yes, as it was mentioned in the video, the DarkSide group of attackers had an attack on the Colonial pipelines in May 2021. And it actually, the crucial issue in all this is the fact that it affected the oil prices in the US. It caused a societal panic, and there was huge disruptions when it comes to the dependent industries. And yes, another case that was mentioned was related to the water treatment in Florida, and this happened just a few months before the Colonial pipeline attack. And yes, in this case, the attackers manipulated the level of the sodium hydroxide in the water, and it was lucky that once they exited the system, the engineers actually managed to observe that change and brought it to normal. So otherwise, this wouldn't have been just a fact on the critical infrastructure, it would actually affect human lives. So when we speak about some cyber threats, of course, they are very diverse in nature, and frequently they are perceived as something that is either on the government side and won't affect the citizens per se, or it is more, especially when we're speaking about something big, it's something that we associate with some big movies and something that is happening, on the TV. But yeah, when it comes to those things, anyone and everyone can be affected. Another case already from the UK, and yes, I know I'm focusing on the trees instead of the instead of actually going to look at the forest, but those actually represent, the highlights of everything that is going behind. And this happened in February 2018, and the cyber attack focused on the airport administrative systems. And while no critical aspects of the operation were affected, it still caused a lot of stress and panic throughout the airport, and those who were flying, just because all of the information was written on the papers like this, and even though the flights were running, everyone was trying to identify their flights through all of these pieces of paper where all the information was displayed. Another case is the financial sector case. And in this case, the whole country had to suffer. And the trick here is that the attack involved the state actor, unlike the traditional cyber criminals. In this case, the malware actually infiltrated the Bangladesh bank computer system, and it was called the SWIFT client. And they managed to steal 81 million, but only due to the typo that hackers have made, because they were targeting to actually steal $1 billion. And the threatening part and the concerning part is actually that this poses a huge threat on the economy. And while the economy is still recovering, the trust into the banking system and the reputation of the banking system of that country won't be that easy to recover. And the telecom sector, as we go, you can see there are different cases, different sectors, still different issues appearing. And in this case, the whole country of Liberia was actually left without the internet, just because the attack happened to be targeted on the telecom operator that owns the Liberia's only fiber infrastructure. And the Miral botnet, which was used for this attack, it was used to conduct the attack over the same days. And and the target was actually not only the company, it was the entire country and all of its citizens. And when we're speaking about cyber attacks, we've heard from the previous speakers a very good analogy with the country, and I want to provide you another analogy, and it's the analogy with the natural disasters. And in fact, we can see the numbers, and in 2022, cybercrime had 19 times greater economic impact than the natural disasters one. Isn't that concerning? I don't know, to me it is. How about you guys? So yeah, when it comes to the critical infrastructure protection, of course, there are different approaches, and usually states follow the three-stage approach. First, they establish a national critical sectors, then they identify the critical subjects within each sector, and after that, they establish the critical information infrastructure within each critical entity. And of course, when it comes to those, different countries have different approaches. When it comes to the EU, we have of course, the NIS directive, which was mentioned, but we also have the Critical Entities Resilience Directive, which entered into force on 16 January 2023, and also has to be taken into account. And when it comes to this, the October 17, 2024 is the deadline for the member states to transpose it. So it is important to mention that besides the EU, the USA has established 16 critical sectors, and as you can see, also the UK, Korea, and Finland has established 9 critical sectors. So each has its own approach, its own sectors that are being defined as critical ones, but they do have it in place and they do work to strengthen the resilience of those. When it comes to the key challenges, of course, there's a wide variety of those. And I believe our audience already knows a big chunk of those. I have faced some of these. And as mentioned, different countries have different priorities when it comes to prioritization of these challenges. But I'm not going to stop for long here just because I'm trying to be mindful of time. But I am going to stop on this element because we think that the interconnection is frequently something that is being neglected as the threat, as the risk. And when it comes to the interconnection, the disruptions or failures in one sector can cascade and have effect over the others. And in this context, it is really important to have an understanding and to manage the interconnectedness of the critical information infrastructure. Yes, of course, when it comes to that, we are speaking about conducting comprehensive risk assessments, implementing robust cybersecurity measures that account for cross-sector dependencies, and of course, we touch upon the cooperations in the sector. We talk about establishing contingency plans for cascading failures and establishing continuous monitoring and adaptation to mitigate the potential impact of these type of disruptions. One thing also that needs to be taken into account is the actual attackers versus the defenders' point of view. When it comes to the attackers, they often act faster and way faster than the victims can actually respond. And this is an issue. And when it comes to that, from the attacker's point of view, they can adapt quickly to changing environment. They often specialize in particular attack vectors or sectors, and they use automated tools and malware kits that can quickly exploit vulnerabilities at scale. When it comes to the defender's point of view, many organizations are responsible for the critical infrastructures, and unfortunately have limited cybersecurity budgets and manpower. So I think this is a reality to many of the countries, and not only in the Europe region. And also, different regulatory requirements and compliance frameworks can delay the implementation of security packages and upgrades, slowing down the response time, as well as the fact that the critical infrastructure often relies on the legacy systems that are harder to secure and update. One concerning factor that I would like to highlight is actually based on the observations from the Global Cybersecurity Index of the ITU. And of course, you can see here a lot of graphics that are bringing to a couple of my points that I've just highlighted in a minute. So we've seen that more than half of countries lack a critical infrastructure protection framework. And the national strategies often neglect the protection of critical infrastructures. Countries lack the requirements for periodic cybersecurity audits on critical national infrastructure. This absence hinders the identification of vulnerabilities. And last but not least, there is a lack of engagement from the private sector in protecting critical information infrastructure. So these are actual data shown on the screen. And overlapping with all of the cases that I showed previously, isn't that making the whole situation even more concerning to you? Because it does to us. And when it comes to the strengthening of the critical information infrastructure, of course, there are different reasons for different countries. A couple of those are on the screen, and they touch upon the national security, economic stability, public safety and welfare, and the protection of the sensitive information, and global sustainability and diplomacy, etc. But regardless of what is the reason, it is there, and it is always a good idea to strengthen your efforts. So when it comes to that, we at the ITU have the mandate to support the countries in strengthening their response capabilities and supporting the countries in making sure that they are as prepared as possible to those type of risks and threats. We do have 4 pillars, and of course the partnerships as the overarching one in our activities. And it covers the incident response, cybersecurity strategy support, cyber inclusion, data and advocacy. And we do have a very long history of working with Montenegro on several of those fields, and we're looking forward to strengthen the cooperation on a couple more, which is on the way, and I think the ministry will be the one telling you more details in upcoming future about those. But just to touch upon a few that are really important in our understanding, because we believe that the improvement of the capacity at the institutional level in terms of the skills, in terms of the legal framework, is really important in order to have that readiness necessary. And we do support the countries in establishing of the CERT and also collaborate with them across their life cycles to support an improvement of their skills and capabilities. We do have a mandate and constantly organize the cyber drills, regional and interregional ones. A couple of weeks ago we had the interregional cyber drill for Europe and Asia Pacific in Cyprus, and we actually had more than 200 participants from 46 countries present there. So it was a great exercise. People were really enjoying it, and what is really important about it, we actually had an exercise on critical information infrastructure protection. And as I was telling some of my friends here in the room, there were, like, of course, the managers and the experts in the field who are like the technical guys who put the hacker modes, hoodies, and were competing with each other, teams, to make sure that they are doing the best, and better than the other country representatives to kind of actually win the first place. But why it is actually important is because every protocol that you have, you can actually use it and test it during those cyber drill exercises and make sure that once you need to have the response in place, you'll be able to provide that response in an adequate manner. And last but not least, the national cybersecurity strategies, it's indeed one of the other fields where we think it's kind of an underlying and the core basic level that needs to be in a country in order to make sure that all of the further actions are aligned and all of the stakeholders have the joint vision in everything that they're doing. So I'm going to stop here. I know that we are running short of time, and I would like to thank you so much for your attention. Hopefully this was interesting, and please reach out to me if you have any other questions.